May 31st, 1222. The dust cloud stretches for miles. You're a Russian prince. Your allied army 80,000 strong has chased a Mongol force for 9 days straight. 9 days of watching them run. 9 days of tasting victory on your tongue. They're breaking, scattering, fleeing like dogs. This is it. This is the moment you've waited for. Your cavalry surges forward. Horses foam at the mouth. Your formations stretch out, fastest riders pulling ahead, slower units lagging behind. But it doesn't matter. You can see them collapsing up ahead. You can practically hear their panic. Can't you? Here's what you don't see. The flags. Small, black and white. Rising and falling in patterns along the Mongol line. Movements so subtle, so deliberate, you'd miss them if you knew what to look for. But you don't know. Nobody in your army knows. And in exactly 4 minutes, that ignorance will cost you everything. The impossible question: how do you coordinate 20,000 horsemen across 5 miles of open steppe without saying a single word? How do you make a retreat look like chaos when it's actually choreography? How do you trick an enemy into chasing you into their own grave and make them thank you for the opportunity? The Mongols didn't just figure this out, they weaponized it. A weapon that turned enemy confidence into paralysis at the worst possible moment. A weapon that made victory look like defeat. A weapon so devastating that medieval commanders literally warned each other, do not pursue the Mongols when they retreat. But warnings don't matter when you're winning, do they? The promise: you're about to discover how a piece of cloth on a stick became the most terrifying communication system in medieval warfare. How silence became deadlier than screaming. How the Mongols turned the moment of enemy triumph into the moment of enemy annihilation. This isn't about flags. This is about the instant everything you thought you knew inverts. The system nobody could read. 1230s, Central Asia. The Mongol Empire is exploding across the known world. But here's what doesn't make sense. Their armies operate in units spread miles apart. No radios. No phones. No messenger pigeons fast enough to coordinate a battlefield that stretches from horizon to horizon. So how? A Mongol-era observer recorded something that sounds like poetry but is actually tactical doctrine. The flag was the army's eye, the drum its ear. Read that again. The flag was the army's eye, meaning vision, coordination, the ability to see what the whole organism is doing. The drum was the army's ear, meaning the signal to move, to strike, to explode into violence. 2 simple tools, cloth and percussion. And with them, the Mongols could execute maneuvers that required split-second synchronization across distances that should have made coordination impossible, defied every rule of medieval warfare, made the unbelievable routine. What the flags actually did: picture this. You're a Mongol commander. Your unit, 10,000 cavalry. You're positioned on the right wing, 3 miles from the center, 2 miles from the left wing. The enemy is advancing. Standard medieval response: horns blaring, officers screaming, visible chaos as orders relay through ranks. The Mongols? Silence. A flag rises on a distant hill, black, then white, then black again. You know what it means. Your 10,000 know what it means. The enemy? They see movement. Maybe. If they're even looking. They definitely don't know it means shift 20 degrees east, maintain withdrawal speed, prepare for envelopment signal. At night, lanterns replaced flags. Same principle, same invisible language. And when the charge finally came, when the trap finally snapped shut, that's when the drums spoke. The Nakara. Great war drums that could be heard for miles. By the time you heard them as an enemy, you were already inside the killing radius. The eerie silence. Here's what made it psychological torture. Medieval battles were loud. Horns, screams, the clash of metal, officers bellowing commands. The soundscape told you what was happening even if you couldn't see it. Mongol maneuvers happened in near silence. Enemy forces would see Mongol units moving, shifting, seemingly breaking apart, but without the audio cues that normally telegraph intent. No horn blast for retreat, no trumpet for wheel left, just movement. And flags you couldn't read. Imagine being that enemy commander. You're watching 20,000 horsemen pull back. Your instinct screams, they're breaking, charge. But something feels wrong. It's too quiet, too organized. No, you're overthinking. They're running. Look at them scatter. Except they're not scattering. You just can't see the pattern. the language only they spoke. Even if an enemy captured a Mongol flag, it meant nothing. Black flag raised twice quickly. Does that mean attack, regroup, shift formation? White flag lowered slowly, while a black flag rises on the opposite hill. What's that signal? The Mongols drilled these signals endlessly. Every unit knew them. Every warrior could execute complex maneuvers, triggered by simple visual cues that took seconds to transmit and were instantly understood. To everyone else, it was like watching someone speak a language that didn't just have different words, it had different concepts. You could see them communicating. You couldn't break the code, and you definitely couldn't react in time. Why this mattered more than swords? Mongol tactics depended on units operating independently, then converging with perfect timing. The feigned retreat, their signature move, only works if 1. The enemy believes the retreat is real. 2. Your scattered units can instantly reorganize when the signal comes. 3. Your wings can sweep around and close the trap before the enemy realizes what's happening. Battles like Mohi and Liegnitz show exactly this pattern. Mongol forces appearing disorganized, even panicked, until suddenly they're not. Suddenly they're everywhere. Suddenly the retreat was a lie. Suddenly you're surrounded. This was impossible without instant communication across miles. The flags made the impossible routine. Transition. The bait. So you're that Russian prince again. May 31st, 1222. You've been chasing Mongols for 9 days. Jeeb and Subutai, two of Genghis Khan's most lethal commanders, have been running. 80,000 Russian and Kipchak warriors behind them. 20,000 Mongols ahead. The math is simple, right? 4-to-1 odds. But here's the question nobody asked. Why would two of the greatest military minds in history run for 9 consecutive days without making a stand? Why would they let you close the gap, tire their horses, stretch their supply lines, unless the running was the strategy? You're about to find out. Here's what the Allied commanders saw. Day 1. Mongols retreat. We pursue. Day 2. Mongols retreat faster. We pursue harder. Day 3. They're breaking up into smaller groups. They're panicking. Day 4. Their formations look ragged. This is it. Day 5. Why are they still running? Day 6. Doesn't matter. We're faster. We'll catch them. Day 7. Some of our units are way ahead now. But we're winning. Day 8. Our army is stretched over 15 miles, but they're right there. Day 9. Tomorrow, we finish this. Every day, the Mongols gave them just enough hope to keep chasing. Just enough visible panic to keep the pursuit hot. Just enough distance to prevent a decisive engagement. What the Russians didn't see, the flags coordinating the withdrawal speed. What they didn't hear, the drum signals keeping Mongol units in constant communication even as they appeared to scatter. What they didn't understand, the 9-day retreat was separating fast Russian cavalry from slow Russian infantry. It was pulling eager warriors away from cautious commanders. It was stretching the Allied army into a thin, vulnerable line. And every single day, Mongol scouts were mapping exactly where each enemy unit was, exactly how tired their horses were, exactly when they'd be ready to strike. The invisible coordination, here's what made it supernatural. You cannot coordinate a 9-day fighting retreat across hundreds of miles without constant communication. Enemy scouts are watching you. If you send riders back and forth with messages, they'll see it. They'll know you're organized. They'll know it's a trap. So how did Jeeb and Subutai keep 20,000 horsemen moving as one organism while making it look like chaos? The flags, raised on hilltops where Mongol units could see them, but enemies were too far behind to interpret them. Shifted at dawn and dusk during each day's march. Patterns that meant, maintain this pace. Shift 2 miles west. Let them close to 400 paces, then extend again. To the Russians, it looked like random movement, desperation, units scattering to save themselves. To the Mongols, it was a script they'd rehearsed 1,000 times. Every withdrawal was measured. Every apparent mistake was intentional. Every moment of seeming chaos was actually perfect control. This was impossible, except it wasn't. The moment before, Day 9, late afternoon, Russian Prince Mstislav the Bold leads the vanguard. His cavalry is stretched thin, but spirits are high. The Mongols are just ahead, close enough to see, too far to catch. Tomorrow morning, they'll corner them against the river. Tomorrow, this ends. Mstislav makes camp. His fastest units are with him. The bulk of his army, miles behind. Some units won't catch up until tomorrow afternoon. But it's fine. The Mongols are beaten. You can see it in how they're moving. Desperate, disorganized. Can't you? Night falls. Somewhere in the darkness, a Mongol commander raises a lantern, specific pattern, visible to units miles away, invisible to enemy camps below. Another lantern answers from the east, another from the west. The flags can't be seen at night, but the lanterns speak the same language. The message is simple: dawn, envelopment pattern, strike on the drums. 20,000 cavalry receive the same order simultaneously. No messenger rides required, no shouted relays, no chance for the enemy to intercept communication. In the Russian camp, sentries hear nothing, just wind, horses shifting, normal night sounds. The worst moment begins, May 31st. Dawn. Mstislav wakes to reports. The Mongol force ahead is moving again. Still retreating. Still scattered. Perfect. He gives orders. Mount up, pursue, finish them. His cavalry, maybe 15,000 riders, surges forward. Fastest horses in front. They can taste it now. The Mongols are right there. Right there. The distance closes. 400 paces. 300. The Mongols are still pulling back. Some are turning to look over their shoulders. Are they afraid? 200 paces. Mstislav raises his sword. His cavalry roars. This is it. The killing blow. 100 paces. And that's when he sees it. A flag black rising on a hill to his right. Another white on a hill to his left. What are those? 50 paces. The retreating Mongols ahead suddenly wheel their horses with impossible precision. Not panicked, not scattered, perfectly synchronized. Wide. The drums. Boom. The Nakara great war drums explode across the steppe. Not from ahead, from behind, from the sides. Mstislav twists in his saddle. Mongol cavalry, thousands of them, are pouring in from the east and west. They're not scattered, they're not broken. They're everywhere. How? When did they? Where were they? Another flag rises. This one he can see clearly now. A signal he doesn't understand, triggering movements he can't predict. The Mongol units ahead, the ones he thought were fleeing, charge forward. The units on his flanks close, like jaws. His cavalry tries to wheel, tries to form up, tries to respond. But respond to what? Where's the main attack coming from? Which direction do you face when the enemy is attacking from 4 directions simultaneously? The paralysis. Here's the thing about battlefield communication. When you can't read enemy signals, you can't anticipate. When you can't anticipate, you react. When you're reacting to attacks from multiple directions, you're no longer fighting, you're surviving, and you're doing it badly. Mstislav's cavalry scatters not strategically, but desperately. Some try to charge the nearest Mongol unit. Some try to retreat back to the main army. Some freeze. The Mongols? Another flag shift. Drums signal a new pattern. Units adjust instantly. The encirclement tightens. Archers wheel into range. Cavalry cuts off retreat routes. It's not even a battle. It's an execution. And it's synchronized with impossible precision. The main army's horror. Mstislav's main force still miles behind hears the drums. They start to march faster. Double time. The vanguard must be engaging. They need to support. Then they see the dust cloud. Not ahead where it should be. Behind them, to the sides. More Mongol cavalry. The units that were scattered during the 9-day retreat have somehow materialized exactly where they needed to be. As if they knew. As if this was planned. As if the entire 9-day retreat was designed to pull the Allied army into this exact position at this exact moment. A commander screams orders. Form square. Defensive positions. But which way do you face? The flags on the hills shift again. Mongol units respond instantly, some feinting, some committing, some holding back. The Russian commanders can't tell which is which. They see movement. They see attacks. They see 20 things happening at once. They can't see the pattern. They can't see that every Mongol unit is following a script they've rehearsed 100 times. They can't see that the flags are coordinating a dance, and they're the ones being danced around. The impossible becomes real. By midday, it's over. 80,000 warriors caught in a perfect killing trap. Thousands dead. Commanders captured or killed. The army shattered. The Mongols lose maybe 2,000 riders. How? How do you coordinate that? How do you turn a 9-day retreat into a 9-day setup? How do you make 20,000 cavalry appear to scatter, then converge at the exact right moment across miles of open terrain? The answer was always there, raised and lowered on hills, visible to those who knew the language, invisible to those who didn't. The cruel truth: Mstislav spent 9 days chasing an enemy who was actually herding him. He spent 9 days watching chaos that was actually choreography. He spent 9 days confident of victory while walking deeper into the trap. And when the trap finally closed, when the flag shifted and the drums spoke and the jaws snapped shut, he had maybe 30 seconds to understand what had happened. 30 seconds to realize the retreat was a lie. 30 seconds to know that every day he'd been winning was actually a day the Mongols were positioning him for slaughter. 30 seconds before it was too late to matter. The flags didn't just coordinate Mongol movements. They created enemy confusion at the exact moment. Confusion was fatal. 1230s, Mongol training grounds, somewhere on the eastern steppe. A boy, maybe 13 years old, sits on a horse he's been riding since he could walk. He's watching flags. Black rises twice. White drops once. Black and white rise together. His unit moves. Wheel left, extend formation, prepare to feint. He doesn't think about it. His body just knows. He's been drilling this since he was 7. The training nobody saw. Here's what made Mongol signal coordination supernatural. It wasn't improvised. It wasn't clever commanders making it up in the moment. It was drilled, endlessly, from childhood. Every Mongol warrior grew up in a system where hunting, herding, and warfare used the same principles. Read the signal, execute instantly, trust the pattern. When you're hunting wolves across 20 miles of steppe with your cousins, you learn to coordinate without shouting. You learn to read subtle cues: a raised arm, a shift in riding position, the way someone angles their horse. When you're herding thousands of animals with a small group across vast distances, you learn that silence is control, that signals work better than screaming, that the group moves as one organism, or it doesn't move at all. The Mongols didn't invent battlefield signals for war. They adapted what they already knew, and they practiced it until it was reflex. The drills that became dominance. Mongol military training included specific exercises. Units would practice the feigned retreat, the signature move over and over. Not just running away while maintaining formation, running away while staying close enough to wheel and charge on signal. Try that. Try getting 1,000 horsemen to retreat at full gallop, looking panicked and broken, while actually staying within 50 paces of each other and ready to turn on a flag signal. It's almost impossible, unless you've done it 500 times. They'd practice the envelopment pattern, center retreats, wings spread wide and quiet, converge on drum signal. They'd practice reading flags at distance. A commander would raise signals from a hilltop 2 miles away. Units had to identify and execute correctly. They'd practice night maneuvers with lanterns, because battles don't always happen in daylight. And they'd practice speed, from signal to execution, seconds. Because in combat, the side that reacts first wins. The side that reacts second dies. Why enemies couldn't copy it? European and Asian armies knew the Mongols used signals. After a few defeats, it wasn't a secret. So why didn't they copy it? Because you can't copy a system that took a lifetime to internalize. A European knight trains for individual combat, glory, one-on-one mastery. A Mongol warrior trains for unit cohesion. The individual means nothing. The formation means everything. When a Mongol commander raises a black flag, 10,000 warriors respond identically without hesitation, because they've done it together 1,000 times. When a European commander tries the same thing, his troops don't know the signals. They hesitate. They look to each other for confirmation. They execute unevenly. And uneven execution in cavalry warfare means collisions, confusion, chaos. Real chaos. Not the controlled kind. The doctrine of flexibility. But here's what made it even more devastating. The signals weren't rigid. Commanders could combine them, improvise, create new patterns on the fly using the same basic vocabulary. Black flag plus double drum beat equals one maneuver. Black flag plus single drum beat equals different maneuver. White flag held steady, while black flag rises equals hold position while another unit advances. It was like a language. Simple words, infinite combinations. And because the basic signals were so deeply drilled, Warriors could understand new combinations intuitively, an enemy trying to decode this. Hopeless. They'd see flags moving and think they were learning the pattern. Then the Mongols would add a variation that changed everything. Mohai, the pattern perfected, 1241. Hungary, this Ahariber. King Bala IV of Hungary has 70,000 troops dug in behind fortifications. He studied the Mongol threat. He knows their tricks. He's not going to chase them into a trap. Smart. Except the Mongols have already adapted. Subutai, yes, the same commander from Kalka River, 19 years earlier, has spent 2 decades refining the system. April 11th, before dawn. Mongol forces appear across the river. They attack the fortified bridge. Hungarian defenders hold firm. Good. This is what Bala wanted. Let them break themselves against our walls. The attack intensifies. Mongol inipoine. They're committing everything to this frontal assault. Bala reinforces the bridge. His army is focused, engaged, confident. What he doesn't see, flags shifting on hills miles to the north and south. What he doesn't hear, drum signals coordinating movements outside his awareness. What he doesn't know, the bridge assault is a diversion, the silent envelopment. While Hungarian attention is locked on the bridge, Mongol cavalry has been crossing the river at 2 other points. North and south, miles away, moving quietly. No drums yet. Just flags coordinating the crossing times, the formation depths, the positioning. By the time the sun rises, 20,000 Mongol horsemen are behind Hungarian lines. Bala doesn't know. His army doesn't know. They're still focused on the bridge, where the Mongols seem to be throwing everything into a failing attack. Then, the flags shift. The bridge assault stops. Mongol units pull back slightly. Bala's commanders breathe. We held them. That's when the drums sound. Not from the front, from behind. The moment of comprehension. Imagine being a Hungarian soldier. You've been fighting at the bridge for 2 hours. You're exhausted, but victorious. The Mongols couldn't break through. You hear drums behind you. You turn. Mongol cavalry, thousands of them, are crashing into your camp from the north and south simultaneously. When did they? How did they? Where were the scouts? Where were the warnings? Your formation is facing the wrong direction. Your commanders are screaming contradictory orders. Units are trying to wheel around, but there's no space, no time, no coordination. And across the river, the Mongols who were retreating from the bridge, they're crossing now. Fresh, organized, flags rising and falling in patterns you can't read, drums signaling movements you can't predict. You're not fighting an army. You're inside a machine, and every piece is moving with purpose while you flail. The escape gap. Here's where it gets even more cruel. Mongol doctrine included something specific: leave an escape route. Why? Because a cornered army fights to the death. But an army that sees escape, they run. And running soldiers are easy to kill. At Mohi, as the Hungarian army collapsed, Mongol units deliberately left a gap to the west. Hungarian soldiers saw it. Salvation. A way out. They broke formation and fled. That's when the flag shifted one more time. Mongol cavalry already positioned along the escape route fell on the fleeing Hungarians in waves. Not a chaotic pursuit. A coordinated slaughter. Units taking turns, staying fresh, cutting down exhausted runners who thought they'd found safety. The killing went on for miles. 60,000 Hungarians dead, most killed while fleeing through the escape gap. The Mongols lost maybe 3,000. The impossible made routine. Think about what just happened. Subutai coordinated a 3-pronged attack across a river, timed a diversion to hold enemy attention, positioned cavalry behind enemy lines without detection, and executed a synchronized assault from multiple directions, all using flags and drums. No radios, no phones, no modern communication at all. Just visual signals most of the enemy couldn't even see, and audio cues that came too late to matter. This defied every limitation of medieval warfare. This was supernatural coordination. Except it wasn't supernatural, it was practice. Discipline. A system so deeply ingrained that 20,000 men could execute complex choreography across miles of terrain while under enemy observation. The psychological weapon. By 1241, word is spreading across Europe. Don't fight the Mongols in open battle. Don't chase them when they retreat. Don't think you've won until you've seen every single one dead. Because they coordinate impossibly. Because their retreats are traps. Because when you think you understand what they're doing, you're already inside the killing radius. Medieval commanders literally wrote warnings. The Mongol retreat is not weakness. It is the opening move. Think about that. An entire tactical maneuver becomes a psychological weapon because enemies know it might be fake, but can't tell if this specific retreat is fake or real. Do you pursue and risk the trap? Do you hold position and let them escape if it's real? The flags made this possible. Because the Mongols could control whether their retreat looked panicked or organized. They could make it look exactly chaotic enough to be believable, exactly disorganized enough to trigger pursuit, while actually maintaining perfect formation, perfect spacing, perfect readiness to flip the script on a single drumbeat. Same year, April 9th, Poland. Henry the Pious leads a combined Polish-German force, 25,000 warriors, knights in full armor, pike formations, the best Europe has to offer. The Mongols? Maybe 20,000. Henry knows the warnings. He's heard about Mohai. He's not falling for the retreat trick. His army stays tight, disciplined, ready. But here's the thing about the Mongol system. It wasn't just one trick. The flags and drums allowed for variations, different patterns, different combinations. At Liegnitz, the Mongols tried something new. They attacked head-on, hard, then retreated, then attacked from a different angle, then retreated again. Each time, Henry's forces tried to respond, tried to maintain formation, tried to stay disciplined, but each maneuver forced them to reposition, and each repositioning created small gaps, small moments of disorder. The Mongol commanders reading the battle from elevated positions, signaling with flags, saw every gap, exploited every weakness. The smokescreen, then came the masterstroke. Mongol units released smoke, thick, choking, across the battlefield. European sources describe it as almost supernatural, some kind of powder that created impenetrable clouds. In the smoke, Henry's army lost visual cohesion. Knights couldn't see their commanders. Pike formations couldn't maintain spacing. Officers were screaming orders that nobody could hear over the chaos, but the Mongols. They didn't need to see their commanders. The drums cut through smoke. Boom, boom. Attack pattern. Wheel right. Reform. Mongol cavalry emerged from the smoke in perfect formation, striking scattered European units that were still trying to figure out where everyone was. Henry's army collapsed. The Duke himself was killed, beheaded. His head paraded as a trophy. 20,000 Europeans dead. The Mongols? Maybe 2,000 casualties. The unbreakable pattern. Kalka River, 1222. Moy, 1241. Liegnitz, 1241. 3 battles, 19 years apart. Thousands of miles between them. Same outcome. Same impossible coordination. Same devastating use of flags and drums to create enemy confusion at the worst possible moment. How many other battles followed this pattern? Dozens, maybe hundreds. Across Asia, across the Middle East, across Eastern Europe. The Mongols conquered the largest land empire in human history, not just because they were fierce warriors, but because they could coordinate those warriors with impossible precision using a communication system the enemy couldn't read, couldn't intercept, couldn't counter. The moment the enemy sees it, put yourself in that moment one more time. You're facing Mongols. You've heard the warnings, but you're confident. Your army is strong. Your position is good. The battle starts. The Mongols seem to falter. Their lines waver. They're pulling back. Everything you've trained for says, this is your moment. Press the advantage. Your cavalry charges. You're gaining ground. They're scattering. You can see it. Then you notice. It's quiet. Too quiet. Where are their horns? Where are their panicked shouts? Where are the sounds of an army breaking? You see a flag rise on a distant hill. Just a flag, meaningless to you. Then another flag, different hill. Then the drums. Boom. And suddenly they're not scattering. Suddenly they're everywhere. Suddenly the broken formation you were chasing has reformed behind you, beside you, around you. Suddenly you understand. You didn't chase them into retreat. They pulled you into position. How long do you have to react? Seconds. Maybe 10 seconds between understanding and impact. 10 seconds to realize the flags you couldn't read were coordinating your death. 10 seconds to know that silence wasn't chaos, it was control. 10 seconds to feel the trap close. The deliberate deception. Here's what made it unbeatable. The Mongols could make their coordination look like anything. Want to look panicked? Flag signal controlled retreat at panic speed. Units scatter wide, but maintain communication, ready to converge instantly. Want to look confident? Flag signal aggressive advance with faint triggers. Units push hard, monitoring for the moment to spring the trap. Want to disappear? Flags coordinate withdrawal patterns that put terrain between units and enemy scouts, then reposition silently. The enemy saw what the Mongols wanted them to see, and by the time they saw the truth, it was too late. The training that defied belief. Go back to that 13-year-old boy on the steppe. Now, imagine 10,000 of him, all trained from childhood, all fluent in the same visual language, all capable of executing complex maneuvers on signals that took seconds to transmit. A European knight trains for years to master individual combat. A Mongol warrior trains for years to disappear into the unit, to become one cell in an organism that moves with one mind. When the flag rises, you don't think. When the drum sounds, you don't hesitate. You move, and so does everyone else, identically, instantly. That's not just training. That's transformation. From individual to instrument, from warrior to weapon system. The question nobody could answer, European commanders, after enough defeats, started asking the right question. How do we fight an enemy who coordinates silently across impossible distances? The answer: you don't. Not with medieval technology, not with armies trained for individual glory rather than unit cohesion, not when your communication system requires sound that the enemy can hear and riders that the enemy can intercept. The Mongols had created a military advantage so fundamental, so deeply embedded in their culture and training, that it couldn't be copied. You could study it, you could understand it. You still couldn't do it, because by the time you saw the flags, you were already in the trap. By the time you heard the drums, you were already surrounded. By the time you understood what was happening, you were already dead. The legacy of silence, the Mongol Empire eventually fragmented, fell, disappeared into history. But the principle remained. Superior communication wins battles. The side that can coordinate silently, while the enemy coordinates loudly, has an unbeatable advantage. The side that can make retreat look like panic, while actually maintaining perfect control, can destroy armies 4 times their size. Modern militaries understand this. Encrypted communications, silent hand signals, coordinated operations across vast distances. The technology changed. The principle didn't. The final truth: those flags, simple black and white cloth on sticks, weren't just communication tools. They were the difference between victory and annihilation. They were the reason 80,000 warriors died chasing 20,000. They were the reason European kingdoms fell. They were the weapon that turned confidence into confusion at the exact moment confusion was fatal. And the cruelest part: the enemy could see them. They just couldn't read them. Like watching someone sign your death warrant in a language you don't understand. By the time you learned what it meant, you were already gone. The impossible made real. So how do you coordinate 20,000 horsemen across 5 miles of steppe without saying a word? You train them from childhood. You drill the signals until they're reflex. You create a language the enemy can't decode. You make silence deadlier than screaming. And you wait for that perfect moment when the enemy thinks they're winning, when their formation is stretched, when their confidence is highest, to raise the flag and sound the drum. The moment everything inverts. The moment retreat becomes attack. The moment victory becomes annihilation. The worst moment. And you made them choose it. Picture that Russian prince one last time. Mstislav the Bold, May 31st, 1222. He's in the center of the collapsing trap. Mongol cavalry closing from 4 directions. His men are dying. His formations are shattered. And he sees it now. The flags on the hills, rising, falling, coordinating the slaughter. He understands finally, impossibly too late, that every flag movement means something. That the Mongols aren't reacting to his army's movements. They're executing a plan they signaled hours ago. A plan his entire army walked into while thinking they were chasing a broken enemy. How does that feel? To realize you were never the hunter. To know that 9 days of winning was actually 9 days of being herded like cattle to slaughter. To understand that the silence you mistook for panic was actually the sound of perfect coordination. The last signal, The drums sound again. Different pattern. The Mongol encirclement shifts, tightens. Archers move into optimal range. Cavalry blocks the last escape routes. Mstislav tries to rally, tries to organize a breakout, tries to do something. But his officers are scattered. His men can't hear orders over the chaos. His formations don't exist anymore. Meanwhile, every Mongol unit knows exactly what to do. Because the flags told them, because the drums confirmed it, because they've practiced this exact scenario 500 times. The battle, if you can even call it that, lasts another hour. It's not combat, it's harvest. The numbers that shouldn't exist, 80,000 allied warriors, maybe 10,000 survive. 20,000 Mongols, maybe 2,000 casualties. 4-to-1 numerical advantage, 40-to-1 casualty ratio. Those numbers shouldn't exist. That outcome shouldn't be possible. Unless one side can coordinate across miles in silence while the other side stumbles through chaos screaming orders nobody can hear. Unless one side has been planning this exact moment for 9 days while the other side thought they were winning. Unless one side has a communication system so advanced, so embedded, so impossible to counter that it turns medieval warfare into a mathematical certainty. The flags made it possible. The flags made it routine. The flags made it inevitable. The warning nobody heeded. After Kalka River, survivors spread the word, don't chase the Mongols when they retreat. After Mohai, the warning updated, don't fight the Mongols in open battle at all. After Liegnitz, European commanders added, their coordination is supernatural. They communicate impossibly. They see everything. They know everything. But here's the thing about warnings. They only matter if you have an alternative. What do you do when the enemy can coordinate silently across impossible distances? Refuse to fight. They'll burn your cities. Stay in fortifications. They'll siege you or bypass you. Try to copy their system. You don't have 20 years to retrain your entire military culture from childhood. The warnings weren't useless. They were just hopeless. Because the Mongols had solved a problem nobody else knew existed. How to make an army think as one mind across vast distances using signals so simple they could be taught to children, yet so complex they formed an unbreakable code. The system's beautiful horror. Think about the elegance. Flags, visible for miles, silent, instantly transmitted, impossible to intercept. Drums, audible for miles, penetrate smoke and chaos, trigger immediate response. Together, a communication network that worked day or night, in any weather, across any terrain. The enemy could see the flags. The enemy could hear the drums. The enemy couldn't do anything with that information. Because seeing a flag rise means nothing if you don't know whether it signals attack, retreat, wheel left, hold position, or execute complex maneuver pattern 7. Because hearing drums means nothing if you don't know whether 1 beat means charge, 2 beats mean regroup, or 3 beats mean spring the trap. It was encryption before encryption existed. It was a military communication system centuries ahead of its time. It was impossible. And it was real. The last question. So why did it work at the worst possible moment? Because the Mongols chose the moment. That's the secret. They didn't react to enemy movements and hope their signals worked fast enough. They created situations where the enemy would predictably respond, then used signals to trigger pre-planned responses to that response. The 9-day retreat wasn't improvised. It was designed to stretch enemy formations, separate fast from slow, and exhaust pursuit forces at a predetermined location. Every day, the flags were saying, maintain the pace, keep them chasing. Not yet, not yet, not yet. And on day 9, the flags said, now. The enemy didn't choose the moment of decision. The Mongols did. And when that moment came, when the enemy was maximally vulnerable, maximally committed, maximally confident, the flags ensured every Mongol unit struck simultaneously. The worst moment for the enemy was the best moment for the Mongols, and the flags made it happen with impossible precision. The final image, one last time. You're that enemy commander. You see the Mongols retreating. You make the decision to pursue. You don't know you've just made the last decision of your life. Because somewhere, miles away, a Mongol commander sees your pursuit begin. He raises a flag, black, then white, then black again. 20,000 horsemen scattered across 5 miles all see it. All know what it means. All adjust their positions accordingly. You don't see any of this. You just see a broken enemy running, You keep chasing, the flags keep coordinating, the trap keeps closing. And by the time you hear the drums, by the time you understand what's happening, you're already inside the mechanism. Already caught in choreography you can't see. Already performing the role the Mongols assigned you 9 days ago. The role of the defeated, the impossible truth. The Mongol signal flags didn't just confuse enemies. They made confusion inevitable at the exact moment when confusion meant death. They turned the enemy's confidence into the weapon that killed them. They made silence deadlier than screaming. They made simplicity more powerful than complexity. They made the impossible routine. 2 pieces of cloth, 1 drum. And with them, the Mongols conquered more territory than Rome, than Alexander, than anyone before or since. Not because they were the fiercest warriors, but because they could talk to each other across 5 miles of battlefield while their enemies were still trying to shout orders across 50 feet. That was the advantage that changed history. That was the weapon hidden in plain sight. That was the reason 80,000 warriors died chasing 20,000. The flags, the drums, the silence, the moment, the end. The signal flags were the army's eye. The drums were the army's ear. And together, they were the difference between coordinated precision and chaotic death. The enemy could see them. The enemy could hear them. The enemy just couldn't survive them. Not when the flags shifted at the worst possible moment. Not when that moment was exactly the one the Mongols had chosen. Not when 9 days of winning led straight into 4 minutes of annihilation. The flags didn't confuse enemies by accident. They confused enemies by design. At the worst moment. Every single time.